action, networking, taking it above, bringing value to the conversations that you're having.
As we climb in our journey and we learn, to share that learning with others so that we grow as a community.
Inclusion plays a part in terms of now garnering all those experiences together and creating a cohesive enough team to produce strong performance.
Be visible, comment about it, reach out. Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing? Beautiful day out there today. It's Thursday. I am very excited to be with you. Very excited, not only because of the topic that we're going to be discussing today, but of the stories that you're going to be hearing of our amazing, sharing the stage with these amazing people who I've always admired. And they have so much to offer. It's such an important topic. The topic about a stigma, the topic about how to present yourself, how to hide certain abilities or not to believe in the unique abilities we have. Yes, the topic today is empowerment for persons with disabilities. We have so much to cover today. So I'm going to bring everybody on screen. Please give them love. Please welcome them, because today it's all about empowerment. This week has been about empowerment, and I hope that every single day when I've come and I've brought these amazing panelists, that you've been here, you've learned from them, you've made notes, you feel or you felt empowered. And trust me, today, by the end of this show, you're going to feel so empowered that you're going to go and burn those stages that you have not at this point even attempted. So without further ado, let me invite them all. Hi, Ronald.
Hello,
Mike. Hi, Sabra. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Great.
Guys, thank you so very much for taking the time out and coming to Destination CEO to empower my audience, and also to share stories and share tips on how persons with disabilities can move forward, feel confident, be empowered. So let's get started. And you know what? Today I'm not going to follow a line because we have a lady here, and ladies go first. So Sabra, let's start with you. Sabra and I go way back. Sabra actually was the professor of my husband when 20 years ago we came to Canada and he decided to upgrade his skills. When I met this woman, I fell madly in love. And I said to her, oh my God, you are so passionate. You are so happy. I want to have what you're having, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And one day when she said that to me, I'm like, what? So Sabra, welcome to Destination CEO again. Thank you so very much.
Meena, thank you so much. I really want to start off by expressing my gratitude to you, Meena. You are a formidable CEO and inspiration for giving me this opportunity to share this platform with the likes of Ronald and Michael on this remarkable kind of week, which is extremely important in honoring, Meena, your mother, your inspiration, and I'm sure many more on this 6th anniversary of Destination CEO. It is my honor and privilege, and I will try my very best to share my little journey in as modest a way as I can.
There's nothing modest about you.
Oh.
Woman, with the amount of awards you have.
Oh, I don't know about that, but
Yes, love to hear. I think everybody needs to know Sabra Desai. I think everybody needs to know her journey. So please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, there are many, many influences. People influenced me over my journey. However, for today, because of the theme, not only of today, but of this week about empowering women, I've decided to focus on my mother, my late mother, someone who in today's language would be called a feminist. She believed in women having equal opportunity, and one of the keys to this opportunity, as far as she was concerned in terms of empowerment, was education and training. This thinking, based on her own life experiences, on how women around her and many poor people were silenced. And I think that inspired her to really reflect on what is it that's important for self-empowerment, and I think it was education. So my mother, like many women of her generation, was denied the opportunity of getting, post-secondary education, let alone finishing high school. Yet she was a woman who was self-taught. She was an avid reader. She kept up with local, national, and global politics. She was the one that taught me about freedom fighters like Chief Albert Lutulu. He, in fact, was the first African to ever win the Nobel Prize. I learned about Mandela. I learned about Winnie Mandela. I learned about Albertina Sisulu, Walter Sisulu, Ruth First, and so many other freedom fighters and people who were activists, teachers, and political leaders, as you know, the history of South Africa. Now that gives away that I am originally from South Africa and who chose to come to Canada and make Canada my home. So my mother was one who believed that everyone has a right to education and a better life. And she influenced our siblings to contribute in the best way we can to lift as we climbed so that we could make the world a better place for everyone, regardless of class, religion, race, and gender, to name but just a few. So what were the barriers when I did arrive in Canada? Well, I came to Canada with the hope, with the dream of going to post-secondary education. The quick realization or reality that hit me was that the cost of living and the cost of post-secondary education was something that made it unattainable for me. So I had to work, and I worked at many different kinds of jobs because I learned from my grandfather and my parents that an honest days of work, regardless of what you do, is something to be proud of. And so many years went by, and then eventually I did muster up the courage to go and explore, needing what was then we needed a grade 13 to get into university. Unfortunately for me, the school counselor that I met said to me with bold face, confidence on her part, that I was aiming too high. I had unrealistic goals. And for an immigrant, I should be kind of thinking about something less than university. So I don't want to belabor that so much, but I do want to talk about the impact of that. The impact of that was at different levels. It was mentally, it was physically, psychologically, emotionally, because what it did, it really dampened my spirits. And what it did was it got me to kind of get into this downward spiral of self-doubt, of not believing in myself. And as a result, I did suffer bouts of depression and really thinking that I was not going to amount to much. and the dilemma and the conflict. Here I had dreams, I had hopes, I had mother and other women around me that talked about the importance of education. And I thought I left apartheid and I left all kinds of barriers in South Africa. And here I come to Canada, a country of opportunity. And I'm hitting similar barriers, not exactly the same, but similar barriers. So that did affect me for a while, but I overcame that. I was determined and I said, you know what, I'm going to use this opportunity to carve my own path. It wasn't an easy path. It was a long path. It required a lot of time. It required a lot of sacrifices. But looking back, I can say, hey, I did it, And so I did end up at University of Toronto. I did my undergrad, honors. Then I went to my graduate, and then I went to more graduate studies. And so one thing that came out of this for me was that I made a commitment to myself to honor my parents, my ancestors, that I was going to commit myself to making this world a better place for everyone, regardless of their challenges. And one of the places I started was I was going to be the teacher, the educator that I did not have. And what I mean by that any learner that I came into contact with, or with whom I crossed paths, regardless of the context, whether I was their teacher, their professor or not, but an educator nonetheless, was that I was going to help them have and raise their expectations of themselves, to believe in themselves that they can do it. Yes, there will be challenges, but let's find the right people to help us in our dreams and our hopes, because our dreams and our hopes are the most personal and precious aspects of our being. And that's what I have dedicated myself to. And here I am now inventing myself over the last few years to go back to something that I started many years ago, is counseling and psychotherapy, to continue this work of helping others come out of whatever difficulties they might be facing.
Wow, Sabra, I am speechless. I mean, what a story, and a woman who defied, overcame, went to school, taught others, and was given the YMCA Woman of Distinction Award for education. So kudos. So proud, so honored to be here with you. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Wow. I'm getting goosebumps, sorry. Let's hear from Michael. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. And Michael, you have such an amazing story. And as I was saying earlier, when I heard your keynote 3 years ago, I was sitting in the audience sobbing. And that created a huge impact, that I moved in towards that direction. And I actually partnered with a number of nonprofits and worked in the North Etobicoke community to help at-risk youth get employed. 300 that you had on me, and I hope that there'll be a similar impact on the audience listening today.
Thank you, Meena. And thank you for having me today and honoring your mother. Must have been beautiful. You're so joyous always. So I'm happy to share my story today. I'm not going to try to make anybody cry today, and I'll shorten it up as much as possible because I want people to, my story is really a story of hopes and dreams also, and about how that what happened to me. So let me take you back to a time when I was working, and one day I got sick, So, and I ended up getting diagnosed with cancer. And so I went through the process of chemo and the treatments, and it was pretty bad. I lost 80 pounds and really suffered, but in the end, my life was saved. But only to find myself into poverty. And there I sat from that time. I spent 13 years living in poverty, experiencing homelessness, and things were pretty dismal. And, before I had cancer, I had a history of mental health with depression and anxiety. So all of this, just compounded with that and sort of all mixed together in almost a deadly cocktail that sucked the life out of me, right? And this is what people are experiencing when they experience poverty and homelessness and isolation and the oppression that that we as society have developed through our systems, where we think we're actually helping people when we're just keeping them chained to the bondage of poverty and homelessness. So it was quite devastating to go through that, because I'd worked hard from a very early age. I started working full-time when I was in high school, all the way through high school, worked full-time and knew what the value of work was, and was taught that, the sort of culture that I was raised in, and I grew up in a small town, and I had even had white privilege, and was able to recognize those things. What happened is, one day I just was at the doctor's office, and I saw a poster for a group called Voices from the Street, and they said where you would give your time to advocate against poverty and homelessness, and they would give you some skills that would help you to be able to speak on those issues. I was pretty beaten down. I had no confidence at all. So the little tags that are on a poster with the phone number that you're supposed to tear off, I tore the whole poster because I was afraid somebody else would call, and that then my chances would be reduced. But anyways, I got into this wonderful program, and what I learned from that is that all the things that had happened to me were happening to other people. Their pathways into it were different, but where we ended up was in the same place. We were in a trap that kept us there, and no matter how hard we tried, we just couldn't seem to pull ourselves out of poverty and about not being able to be valued anymore. So I didn't have any value for myself. I'd completely lost that. I thought that there must be something deficient about me. And so I believed that for a long time, but I had this aching need inside of me to be able to contribute, to belong, to be part of something other than being seen as somebody who needed to be taken care of. And so that was the start of my journey. We learned a lot of skills and about how people struggle. There was people from newcomers, immigrants, women. There was so much to learn, and it's still a continuous journey of learning about what people's personal experiences are and the challenges that they have to go through in systems that are meant to destroy dreams, destroy hope, and to be able to get that back. So when I graduated from Voices from the Street, I continued to come into the office just so I could say I needed to do some research and stuff. And so I was hanging around there so much that they ended up giving me something to do, and then it ended up being a part-time job. And then somebody left the organization, and they interviewed me to take on that role. I got that job, and then from that job, then I became a director at the organization I work for, Working for Change, and director of strategic initiatives, which actually helps us to drive the changes that we're looking for in society that is going to help to end some of the oppression, some of the terrible things that our system is based on. It's a very white sort of world, and when you start to recognize that and about our colonial past and how that all intersects and how it keeps us from being, all of us, it keeps every Canadian from being the best that they can be. But, through it all, my mental health, actually started to improve. It's a funny thing what a job sometimes can do for you. But, that I see that, that some people don't do well with the job. They have mental health challenges and issues that pop up. And it's, I work in a job that brings me joy. And so that is really important also, right? I found a place where I belong and felt that I could be really constructive and useful and a change maker. And, and I have been able to do that over the last 13, 14 years. I have taken on leading roles within changing structures and changing to improve lives for people who need to be treated better. So these are things that are really important. And I get to see people from all walks of life and get to hear their stories. How privileged am I to be able to hear personal stories of people's struggles? Because it gives me a better understanding of how the world is really working out there and how we need to change things and move things forward if we really want for everybody to succeed. And I think that that's important to understand, that we're just not responsible for ourselves. We need to have great expectations for everyone. Whether you have whatever your disability is, it shouldn't be about low expectations. It should be about great expectations, that people are capable of being much more than we see them as, and to encourage them and to lead them and to lift them up and to stand by their side is, I think, some of the greatest things that you can do in your life to actually, bring change. Individual, collective, systemic changes are so important if we really want to enhance the lives and make our society a much, much, much better place for everybody to be themselves, to be joyous and to dream and have all the things that we all wish for when we are young. And those things continue through the whole process of life. You should never quit dreaming. Yeah. So there's a lot more, but I wasn't going to go into all the details about it. But the importance is that I've been able to work, and I can tell you, to be able to talk openly about mental health challenges is extremely important. And the stigma that is still attached to that is something, that keeps so many people from actually recovery. So recovery for me, outside of the medical model, is one of the answers for people to actually be able to regain control of their lives in combination with any medicines and advice that they may need. So I hope that's all right, Mina. Good.
You hit the nail right on the head. I don't know if I'm having technical difficulties. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, you can hear you now.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I said you hit the nail right on the head. Everybody wants a sense of belonging, regardless of who they are, what they are, how they are. They need to be able to belong, and getting involved, getting work, almost getting paid for their skills that they have, gives them that sense of belonging. Being a part of an organization, of a group, gives them that sense, and then moving forward. So thank you for sharing that. So we'll go to the all jobs man then. Ronald, welcome. Ronald, thank you so much for taking out the time to join us. I know that you've come to many of our events at Harvard College, and you have motivated a lot of new grads in the tech world. You've also hired so many, you've referred and recommended so many at RBC. But we've never had the chance to really get to know who Ronald is. It's always Ronald's role at RBC. But today, I would like to take this opportunity to get to know who you are and what's been your journey and what have been some barriers and how you overcome them.
Yeah, sure, definitely. You know what? Again, first of all, thank you, Meena, for inviting me. And I'm very happy to be here, especially for this topic around empowering persons with disabilities. I myself, I'm a person with a disability, a physical disability, which I've had since I was a baby. So I've had it all my life. And in my current role, I'm an inclusive recruitment specialist. And my whole job is about trying to attract and engage with diverse talent to try to bring them into the bank. I work a lot with persons with disabilities as well as newcomers to Canada, which is definitely a large cohort, and it's really going to be responsible for a lot of the growth in Canada. So it's very much an important segment for the bank. Me personally, I was born and grew up in the Caribbean. I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago. So I myself am fairly much of a newcomer to Canada. I moved here maybe back in 2009, I think it was, late 2009. I went to school, did my MBA. And of course, when I came out, that expectation of being able to get a job was very high. And I thought, oh yeah, that's it. It's going to be pretty easy. So I think something like what Sabra was mentioning, you learn that there's a lot of challenges here. Trying to get a job and stuff like that. So either you come direct from another country looking for a job, or sometimes you just, you finish school and you're looking for that job, and it could be challenging. It took me about, maybe it was like a year after I graduated, when I was able to land a job at RBC. Now, I had gone to school for marketing and strategy, but found it very difficult to find something there. It really damages your confidence when you can't get a job, especially if it's a job in a field that your initial goals and desires was for a particular area. So, but I eventually got a job at RBC doing sales. So I was a banking advisor and providing advice to retail clients for their investments and credit needs. And and I think Michael kind of mentioned this, there's something about the power of just getting up in the morning and going to work. It does something for you psychologically. I don't know if it's a routine of dressing and going out, and you're learning something new. And my role was a lot of interaction with people. So just meeting people all the time and hearing their stories around their banking needs. It was so powerful and really good to help me grow, be more confident again, and progress with my life here in Canada. Now, about 4 years ago, I was able to move internally within the organization, and I was able to get into recruitment. And it was interesting. I don't have a HR background, but when we're talking, and I'm going to sound a little HR here, HR language now. When you talk about transferable skills, I was able to translate all that relationship building and engagement with customers into this role where it's still a lot of engagement, but instead of customers, it was now candidates. I was also able to leverage my own experience as a newcomer to Canada at one point, and as a person with disability, which was, again, important to the role because this was about diversity and inclusion. So I was able to sort of leverage all the strengths, skills, experiences I had into this new role. And the last 4 years have been a blast. I've heard tons of stories, even things I did not know. Even I had a limited knowledge about what disability was, for example. and that's ever expanding. My knowledge is always growing there. And then even for newcomers, I realized some of their stories were similar to mine. Sometimes it was even more heartbreaking to hear. And then, of course, ultimately, the last piece where everything sort of merged is when you start to get that intersectionality of newcomers to Canada who have a disability. So sometimes, people are hesitant to talk about the disability. Some cultures, it is what it is, have not been very open to persons with disabilities. You tend to get shunned in society. So you tend to want to bury that you have a disability. While here in Canada, it is actually, we want you to disclose because we're looking for ways to help you be more productive at work and everything like that. So if you need assistance, it's important to disclose. So that's kind of an abridged version, but I'll be happy to answer questions as we go forward.
Ron, that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. And that's so inspiring. I have to admit, RBC, I've been meeting a lot of people from RBC and reading a lot of stories. It's somehow, and now RBC has become my favorite bank, specifically because, you just shared that you started off in a sales role and how you grew. Neelam Advani, love her. She shared how she started, in an entry-level role in client-facing role, financial advisor, I think, in Hergy. So with RBC, I think it's almost like a trend and a culture that they grow within. So I highly recommend looking for employment in the financial sector, check out RBC. And, Michael, you also said that it gave you a sense of belonging when you, after you graduated, you kept going back and you volunteered and eventually they hired you and now you're the director of that place. So those are amazing stories. Sabra, you never shared how you started your career. You were an educator for the longest time. Oh my God, not only Sabra was an educator, but she raised funds. She started so many initiatives at Humber College. I mean, I can't even start, but I remember one of them was, I think, Sabra, you brought in the first Indigenous
elder
person. You started an initiative, yes?
Yeah.
So how did you first get? So a lot of newcomers come here. They have PhDs. In fact, at 3 o'clock, I have one of my international professors doing a project management, my project career as a new Canadian. And she wants to get started as a professor. How did you get your first job as a professor?
I think both Michael and Ronald, really touched on some of the very important things that I would just highlight. One is, and you did too, Meena, that all human beings need to have a sense of belonging and connectivity plus community. And I think those are such important ingredients for a healthy life. And when I say healthy, I mean it in its most holistic sense. So I think each one of us, what we are always striving is to have and experience that sense of belonging, connectivity, and community. And some of us might want to start off with the kind of work we're doing or the kind of field we want to be in. And we try to kind of find that niche, so to speak. And it might take a little trying and keeping one's eye, mind, and heart and soul open to where the opportunities might be. And I think in the journeys that Ronald, Michael, and I shared so far, one theme that comes out is that how we were able to adapt, transform, and reinvent ourselves despite the challenges. So for the professionals that are coming into this country, I would say that one thing is that always remember one is that you are worthy of an opportunity. Two, that you have a role in creating that opportunity, and so do others. Number three is that, you know, moving from country or moving from being a student to joining the workplace or whatever comfort zone one has been in, and to come out of that comfort zone needs special qualities. So I think that this is what I mean is remember that, right? So in my case, again, trying to connect these things. As I mentioned, I went through bouts of depression because I felt not worthy. I did not have the kind of network. And I'm talking about many decades ago in Canada, where we did not have community-based organizations that help people explore the different challenging terrains. And I feel very blessed and privileged that I met many women with whom we created those kind of spaces in Toronto, and that grew beyond Toronto to open up the dialogue and discussions about inclusivity, about the differences and the intersectionality and the differing needs. So, you know, and so my journey was, I did a fine job, started off part-time, and I think Ronald talked about transferability of skills. So as I became more confident about my skills, I began to look as to where are the opportunities that my skills that I have kind of honed. I mean, we're learning right throughout our lives, but with every milestone we have to look back and look at the skills, the strengths that we have, and look at what are the different areas that we can apply them to. What is their transferability? What is my currency? In other words, what is the currency of my skills? Okay. And that's how I evolved from one role, from part-time, working at different jobs. And then as they saw me and what I had to offer, and this is where how I presented myself, and we'll get to that later, I know, and those things coming together that helped me move from one position to another. But keeping in mind and balancing, as Michael said, that it's not only about me, it is about us. So how do I, and I use this expression, how do I lift as I climb? But being mindful of what am I climbing and where am I climbing? So that's how I got from the get-go in terms of system change and addressing systemic issues. And that led to other opportunities, and that led to my risk-taking and kind of pushing the envelope, pushing the walls, and trying to have the institutions kind of begin to appreciate what inclusivity really means. And I'm talking about inclusivity in all human diversities, be it sexual orientation, be it class, be it religion, be it gender and sexual orientations, whatever they might be, because human beings are very, very diverse. And we need to make systemic changes so that all human beings are regarded with respect and dignity. And so I don't know if I really answered your question, but the key thing is about transferability, currency, and acquiring skills to make one's skill set more current.
Thank you, Sabra. Thank you. I want to dive a little deeper into invisible disabilities, right? Because visible disabilities are visible, right? And even if we look at the disability sign, it's a person sitting in a wheelchair, right? But there are so many invisible disabilities, and rightfully, as Ronald was saying, there's a huge stigma around it. Mm-hmm. You know, many of our cultures don't even accept it. I mean, the disability, invisible disability, could be as as simple as anxiety. And and my kids have it: anxiety, dyslexia, um, high blood pressure in some cases, or diabetes, where you need certain accommodations. There are so many. And Michael went through a journey. He recognized the his life. He just, wow. Michael, you're a director. I mean, after everything you've been through. But that belief, right? So first I'd like to address how to address that, the invisible disability. And Ronald, you said that employers encourage participants, but it's not every employer that encourages people, and not everybody is comfortable sharing. I remember one of my students says, I don't want a job because I have a disability. I want a job because I have the ability. And that was so profound for me, because he could have gotten a job anywhere. He's top 30 under 30 right now as a programmer. But those were his words, I think 5-6 years ago, when I used to teach him at Humber. So let's talk about a little bit of what are these invisible disabilities, and what is the best way to deal with it or approach it. And then I'd like to talk about how people with disabilities, persons with disabilities, are actually in the poverty line and way below poverty line. So
Sure. Maybe I'll take a first crack at it.
Please.
Yeah. So first of all, when you're applying for a job, and when we're looking for someone for a particular role, our main focus is your abilities above everything else. The whole issue around disclosure comes about if you do require some sort of support while on the job or during the recruitment process. We want to make sure that you are able to put your best foot forward. We have been building this culture internally that is to be accepting for everyone as best as we can. And I want you to be productive. If behind the scenes, your work might lag because of your disability. Let's say you might need some time off. You might have some medication that you take that make you sort of woozy. I'm just throwing out an idea. If you are working under such conditions, you might not be the best. What then happens is when you come up for review, quarterly or semi-annually or annually, wherever it is, if your manager doesn't know, the first thought is, oh, Ronald's just not performing to what our standards are. But this whole problem could have been solved if I had requested 1 day a month, let's say, to work from home, where maybe I can rest for half the day and I can work for half the day. We want to make sure that candidates know that we have a structure in place that allows for that. But we can't help you if we don't know. Mm-hmm. So the whole notion of disclosing is to make sure you get the right accommodation in the process. So it's not that we want to know your medical business. We just need to know what we need to know to support you in the work environment. So I just wanted to be clear, we're not hiring you just because you have a disability. This isn't something that we're saying, oh, it's nice to have somebody with a disability. All right, we're doing this because it's the right thing to do. And I know I'm speaking, of course, from RBC, and you're right. A lot of different companies are at different stages of their sort of inclusion journey. A lot of the big banks, I know some colleagues in other banks, the philosophy is pretty similar. Some of the larger organizations have that similar philosophy. But when you are looking for a job, if you know this is important to you, when you're doing your research, you also want to research what's the culture of the organization. So you remember, when you're doing an interview, we're interviewing you, but you're also interviewing us. It's a matter of fit. So, that's just something to consider as you're going through this whole process of looking for a job and things like that.
Yep.
Michael, would you like
Sure.
to add to that?
So I work for an organization that, actually looks for people with mental health, addictions, and we've added to poverty and homelessness, violence against women, people who are maybe a distance from the labor market to be able to find them employment in our social enterprises, and also any position. We have that open, that we, as part of it's conceded. If you have two candidates and there's a tie, the person with the mental illness wins in our organization. So it's important about changing. That's the culture of our organization, is we recognize that there are all these disadvantages out there for people into getting back into the labor market. And for people who have serious mental illnesses, there is little or no opportunity at all. And we know that work improves their mental health also. So less hospitalizations, less medication, better family life, everything improves with their lives with a job. And so we really look for that. And, to give a couple of examples, is we've had people who come to our organization who are highly skilled, but had been so beaten down that they didn't think that they had anything left in them. And now they hold high positions within public servants. They work for the Ontario government, and only because they were so beaten up, and that they with mental health or other issues. I think poverty in itself is what it does to people in itself. It's just terrible to see what people have to go through. So changing that culture to make it easier for people to be able to talk about a disability, or also social issues. What's happening at your home reflects what happens in your workplace. And if you don't feel comfortable being able to go talk to your supervisor or somebody about a situation that you're experiencing that you would like to address, then you could end up, employers could end up losing really good employees over something that is really simple, to be able to have that sort of philosophy that we'll work through this together, right? And the bigger the organization is, the more sort of HR it becomes. But you can still develop, even within big organizations, relationships with people who are your supervisors, so that you can just have good, honest conversations about those things, because that is ultimately will get everybody to where they need to sort of go. And but it's hard for people to disclose sometimes, because it can be seen really as something that is career limiting, and still has stigma attached to it. It's represented differently in different cultures, and so it can be a really tough spot for people.
I'm glad you said that, because it's people like you that need to educate employers that may have the paragraph of being inclusive but not really are being inclusive. I want to take this because to Sabra, as a coach, if I come to you, I'm depressed, I'm beaten, I'm completely broken. What could be, and I'll ask everybody actually, what could be one or two things that I could do immediately to start believing in myself? Because I really see no value in me. I'm depressed to the point where I don't want to get out of bed. I'm getting anxiety attacks. So you're talking about job search, about getting involved in a community, whereas I just want to sit in a black room. Mm-hmm. What can be that one or two things that I could do? Open the stage up to everybody, but let's start with Sabra. What can be that one or two things I can do?
There are a couple of things, and I think it's such a broad question in some ways.
Yeah.
But let me, starting with a person who is in that dark place and who's at a point where he or she doesn't want to even leave his or her room. My approach is that depending on who is referring that person to me, I I recommend, I suggest, I invite. My language I have to be very careful about my language. So I usually use the word invite. Invite them to call me first. And over the telephone, or now we're using, different visual media, as we are doing right now, to in fact give them an opportunity to engage with me, not quite in a session, but actually, like what Ronald said earlier, is give them an opportunity to interview me. And I see that as an opportunity where I can help them see that, let's connect human to human. Both you and I have our vulnerabilities. And what is my role in this therapeutic coaching, counseling, whatever language the person is comfortable with in this relationship? And I see it as a partnership. I see this as something that where the person who's reaching out to me for help and I'm reaching out also reciprocally to help. This is a reciprocal, two-way relationship. So that's the first conversation. And then I do get them out to meet me. Well, now it's usually over the, either the HIPAA, which is, I won't get into that, but approved encrypted sites where we can do some of the coaching, the counseling, the therapy virtually. And I build a relationship, and I start with, from the very first time, is giving the person an opportunity to share with me as much as they feel safe. And I continue to create a safe environment, a sense of trust, so that they can tell me their story, and I work with them in peeling away the onion layer by layer. Okay, so that's how I would get the person hooked in. But I also want to get to the other point. There is a lot of stigma even here in Canada. It's not only about cultures that we think that are far away, some other place in some other land. We have stigma here related to both visible and invisible disabilities. One of the things that I start with personally is I like to start looking at it as every human being having varying abilities. We are all on a spectrum. We are all on a continuum of having varying abilities. Okay, that's my starting point, whether it is a mental challenge, whether it is a physical challenge, or it is an intellectual challenge, whatever. Okay, so we all have varying, and this is how we need to start and how we can help each other. And as a coach, as a therapist, what I do is with people with dealing with different kinds of stigma associated varying abilities, I do have a set of things that I get them to engage with. And it's a process, it's a journey, and I will simplify it. So for instance, and this can be applied to anyone, okay, and anyone can use it, is to create an inventory of one's strengths. For example, one's determination to persevere regardless of the challenges, because what that means is that it's helping one to begin to believe and trust in oneself. The other one is make a list of your skills and your abilities. Then also list your challenges and how you have adapted your challenges. And also think about, as Ronald mentioned, very important, what are some of the accommodations that you might need from your workplace? This is the kind of lists that I'm talking about, is a way to prepare yourself. And my role is to help empower the person to actually create the opportunity and the sense of worth that is going to help them request the accommodation. And the other one is to think about, in all of this, is coming up with a 1-minute pitch that's going to make it very difficult for the prospective employer, the panel of interviewees, to reduce or negate or minimize what you have to offer, given how you are dealing with your challenges, so that you see how it's a preparation to getting you to that 1 minute pitch where you really internalize and believe in yourself. And what I liked, Meena, that you said, mentally and physically. Because if you think of yourself as worthy, and if you're healthy, if you have a healthy sense of self, you present yourself with confidence. Now, mind you, that also requires how you present yourself, because let's face it, the reality is out there, people still judge a book by its cover. So we have to be mindful for that too, because presentation of self is physically is as important as presentation of oneself mentally. And I'll stop there.
Thank you, Sabra. Thank you. That's very profound. Quite similar to when we are creating our elevator pitch or a credible introduction. Yeah, physically or mentally, I remember snowy days, Sabra, you with your knee braces and the like a doll, as always. So, you know, I think the motivation and the sense of belonging got you there and made a difference. Thank you. Michael, I'll bring the same question to you. You've been through it. So, you know,
Yeah.
not only are you in charge of an organization that is helping, but what was that to start believing in themselves, to build that confidence?
So, you know, one of the things that I'm still learning.
I'm sorry, are you able to hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah. Good. Go ahead. All right. One of the things that I've really learned, that I've had to learn, is listening.
Mm-hmm.
So it's was a skill that I'm still working on. I'm not good at it. And so what I really do is try to concentrate when people are telling me something that is happening with them, is learning to really listen. And also, sometimes when people are telling you something, they just need to tell it. They don't need any advice or anything. They just need to be able to share that at the time. And people will seek advice if they're looking for it. So I've learned that, and about how important it is for people really to be able to, because if you stop seeing yourself, that is how other people will see you also.
Mm-hmm.
That they'll just see sort of an image in front of them, and you won't be able to project anything. You won't be able to project who you really are, and to be able to display, you know, well in interviews, or actually start to feel really comfortable, unless you're comfortable in your own skin. And so that's really important, to be able to get that out of the way so that you can do that. And you can't fake your way through this part of things. It's something that comes across really strongly, I think, during an interview process, how people see and feel you, and it's about being able to project that. And so I've had people I'm not a counselor, I'm not a trained counselor, I'm not really what you consider a peer worker, but a person with lived experience, where, you know, sometimes people will just ask me to tell me a bit, what did you do when this happened? And being able to share that allows people then to be able to express themselves and see if it's going to work well for them.
Okay, so it seems like Meena is still having some technical problems. I'm going to try to answer the question as well. I guess you will come to me next, and I'll take a different turn, because personally, you know, I haven't encountered someone directly who might be in such a dark state where they lock themselves in a room. If I did encounter someone, certainly my goal would be to try to listen to them. And you know what? I would encourage them to get some help because I think that would be beyond my abilities to really provide all the help that's needed. But in terms of the broader discussion of how somebody can build confidence, and again, I'm going to put it in the context of recruitment. And I tell this to persons with disabilities all the time. There's a lot of work you must do before you even come to an interview. Even before you apply, you have to know your own story and be confident in your story. Tell your story to others. And then when you write it on paper, make sure it sounds like what you know it is. Sometimes people have a lot of the skills and requirements that we need, but the confidence is not there. And then that leads into a poor resume. And even if they get interviewed, they're so nervous that the interview doesn't go well. When you're confident in who you are and what your story is, sometimes you could turn your interview more into like a conversation. And that, to me, that's the ideal state. I myself am not always the best interviewer. I had my own challenges when I was looking for a job. But as I went on, I was fortunate. What I started to do, I started to meet different people for coffee. So I would reach out to people on LinkedIn. And again, with that, sometimes I had to reach out to 100 people to get one response. But every time I met someone for coffee, because I kept repeating and practicing in my head before I met the person, by the time I got in front of the person, the conversation started to become a little more natural. And that prepared me well for when I did get the interview, because it was some of the same questions coming up in a different structure, but then the response started to roll off my tongue much more naturally. So in terms of building your confidence, one of the things I think is very important is knowing your story and playing it to yourself over and over. Mina, I think you're back. I kind of took a detour on that question, but I just thought it would have been important. I know time is of the essence as well. Okay, it seems.
I'm so sorry. It just seems like whenever it gets exciting, my technical issues happen. So I apologize if you saw me going in and out or trying to me. But this was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. Yes, we are out of time. But before we go, do you guys have any final words? Ronald, if you can stay back for a second, we have a special announcement to make before we close. But do you guys have any final words for the audience? If they want to learn more about your services, your organizations, how can they reach you? Are you open to LinkedIn connections?
I would like to, just building on what I heard Michael and Ronald say, one of the other issues that I've seen over the years increase is bullying in the workplace. And I think when you are dealing with visible and invisible disabilities or varying abilities, the chances are heightened in terms of experiencing bullying. And I think that workplaces and employers have to start addressing that, because otherwise, if we don't, we become complicit in encouraging and reinforcing the bully to continue. So that's something that I've worked with individuals and who we're dealing with, for example, anxiety or an accident, physical related disability. And now when they went back to work, what was and they experienced bullying. So I just want to put that out as something that people should, and particularly employers should keep in mind, the whole environment, toxic workplace as a result of bullying. But the thought that I want to leave people with is that something that I learned is in life, there is a role for everyone one meets, just like the 100 people that Ronald met for coffee. Some will test you, some will use you, some will teach you, and ones that are important are the ones who bring out the best in you. So stay close to them, since these are the people who are really what you need as agents of confidence, of agents of building empowerment. These are the ones that remind us and will remind you why it is all worth it. So that's what I want to. And in terms of my website, it's simply Sabra Desai, www.sabradesai.com.
Great, and you can
Amazing.
you can
Yes,
you can just Google Michael Creek or Working for Change. You can feel free to contact me by email right now, because I'm not in the office, only a couple of days a week to do some technical work. But I'd like to leave also with sort of a message that that we live in a world and in a country and a city that needs some changes. You can be part of that change, and to be part of that change is so important, because we really need to be together. It's not the pandemic that we're in this together. We're in life together all the time, and we need to recognize the importance of that, and how we care and see for each other is extremely important. And that in itself will start to empower you to be able to make great changes in life.
thank you.
For me, I'll try to be quick. Yes, I'm open to connections. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I get tons of connections all the time. I try to engage with as much people as I can with short messages in the messenger section. But if I don't respond to you, please don't take it personally. I just have so many people coming in onto my system, and I tend to accept everyone. But I do post regularly. Sometimes I'll share roles that my colleagues will have, or I might share something that's interesting to the newcomer community or the community for persons with disabilities. So you can certainly follow along there. And once you're connected with me, when you post, I'll see your posts as well. So that's another way of communicating with me through LinkedIn. In terms of any final words, I know, again, Meena, I know your audience is primarily, newcomers to Canada, and there's certainly going to be some persons with disabilities in the mix as well. If you are still looking for a job, I know it feels challenging right now. You might want to give up, but I'm asking you to stick with it. Keep pushing. Keep doing something different. Keep reaching out to people and asking them to coffee. Well, virtual coffee now, I guess, because we can't meet in person per se. But keep applying. Keep looking for all the different avenues. I know you might, let's say you're a scientist. I know you're looking for that job title that says scientist in it. But I would encourage you to look at job descriptions. Maybe there's a new role that you're not aware of, that you've never looked at, that can use your skills as a scientist or an analyst or a web designer that might not be in the title. Don't discount a job opportunity because it doesn't sound like what you want. You've moved to a new country. It's a time for new beginnings. Take full advantage of it. Try something new. Let's see where it goes.
Yeah.
All right, that's my message.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you. I really, really appreciate. Thank you so much, panelists. I do want to make a big shout out to RBC team. Specifically, thank you, Vivian, for letting Ronald join me today, and also Neelam. I know you're probably watching or you'll watch the recorded version, and Ronald is going to make the big announcement because I am so excited about it. Ronald, what are we doing tomorrow?
Sure. So tomorrow, RBC is kicking off its 3rd annual Brampton Newcomer Day. It's going to be a virtual event, and this is in part to celebrate our RBC meeting place. So again, at the top of the event, I mentioned that newcomers to Canada are an important part of the Canadian story going forward, and RBC appreciates that. We have actually started to develop branches or locations that are geared specifically for newcomers, providing them advice in terms of integrating into the system, just generally, financially, even understanding workplace culture. We talk about employment opportunities. We bring different people in to have different discussions. This is a place where you can connect. Right now, we have some physical locations in Markham and Brampton, and we're looking to develop more of them. But yes, you can check us out. It's RBC Meeting Place. You can always Google it and check and see. And Mina will be one of the presenters, if not the main presenter, at our event tomorrow.
That's great.
I can't believe I've had to have this challenge here, but I hope Ronald said what he needed to say. I'm going to say it again tomorrow. RBC is going to kick off Brampton, which is the 3rd annual Newcomers Day. Brampton. Yes, Newcomers Day, 10 o'clock, right here on Destination CEO. So everybody that wants to know
This is the brave new world
along
where
with
these
the
things
links,
can
you
happen.
can find me. I'm right here on LinkedIn. And if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, subscribe and put the notification button on so you get to know. Panelists. Yes. And see, guys, the reason why this conversation was important was because COVID is working crazy on your mental. It is very challenging, but with the guidance and support and all this empowerment, all this knowledge that we are bringing to you, I hope that you're going to take this and you're going to take this to the next level. Hope that in our humble approach, we've been able to empower you with the challenges that you're facing. These amazing panelists are available to connect with you. All the panelists have been over here. And also, you know that we are doing an amazing conference where the mentors of Destination CEO are coming together. Yes, it's my mother's birthday on Saturday. For you, please make sure you sign up. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. I really, really appreciate it and hope to see you very soon. We'll celebrate Sweet 16 together. We're only 6 now.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Nice meeting you, Ronald, Michael.
Bye.
Yes, nice meeting you as well.
Bye, Mina.
Action, networking, taking it above, bringing value to the conversations that you're having.
As we climb in our journey and we learn, to share that learning with others so that we grow as a community.
Inclusion plays a part in terms of now garnering all those experiences together and creating a cohesive enough team to produce strong performance.
Be visible. Comment about